What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Everybody Has a Podcast. I'm Andy, and I'm really excited today because I have my friend Jet Bunditwong here, and he has an awesome podcast called The Personal Side of Business. And we're going to talk all about that today. I want you to hear directly from someone else who at one point did not start a show, then began starting a show, why he did it, the backstory, and some of the great things that have happened in his personal and business life. How you like that for a nice little tie-in there? Because of starting a podcast. So Jet, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. It's also interesting to be on this side of the mic. This is the first podcast I've ever been on where I'm being interviewed.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Like even before you started your own show, like you
I
were
swear,
never
this
on
is the
anything
first
else or
one.
anything? Oh,
This is
wow.
I'm breaking my cherry right here on being a guest.
Oh my gosh.
It's cool.
So today we're going to talk about black shirts and men.
yeah.
It's going to be a very short show.
Yeah. Just right to the point.
Right? Yeah.
There's,
I get teased all the time because we have the same haircut,
right.
and it looks like we choose the same top, maybe more days out of the week than not. So for people who don't know what you do, like what is your actual business, and then we'll talk about your podcast. Kind of what's the cool quick debrief on both those.
Yeah, so I have been doing merchant services, credit card processing for almost 10 years now with a company called Spot On. I came onto them when I was just trying to transition out of insurance, really. It was just to get out, do something different. I wanted to help small businesses, and this was a kind of a way for me to get my hands dirtier and then to really have an effect, I felt like, for small businesses. And in that time, as I was starting to, I felt like there was something that was missing for small businesses for, I would say, marketing, advertising, but I think that's really the heart of it. I felt like small businesses, once you get into that space, you sort of lock in and you forget that there's social media, that there's things that you need to do in order to try to get your business out there. And then I came up with this idea. I got invited to be a small business advisor with the SBDC probably like 4 years ago, and went to a conference, and they were having a workshop where they were talking about doing podcasts for small businesses, how even if a small business did a couple podcasts every month just to get their word out, it allowed the audience or customers to really connect with them on a personal level. And
How many years ago is this?
This was 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
And so I kind of went back and I was like, you know what, we should do this. And I think everyone was like, sure, you do it. And it was just left for me, right?
Hey, Jet, that's a really swell idea. Someone you know should do that.
And I was like, well, I don't know at all how to do this. So what was interesting is one of your guests that you had, Pam, she's with the SBDC as well. And I went to Pam and I was like, what do we do? And she's like, you just got to get started. And I was like, I still don't know what that means. I don't know. Am I supposed to just start in my room somewhere, do that? She's like, whatever you do, just get started and start to figure it out. And I think I waited a few years, and then it was January. It was a year ago this month that I sat down and I was like, I need to just figure out what I want to do in that space. And I knew that I felt like for me, if I did just the audio version of a podcast, that it felt like it was going to get lost. So I needed to have something that looked a little more professional. So I'm not saying everyone has to do that. I just think for me, in order for me to jumpstart it and get visibility on it, I needed to really get something that looked on point and have a sound. And of course, like even in that year, 2025, going from the first episode to where I finished, it's dramatically different.
Absolutely.
You just learn so many things.
We're not in this room. This room didn't start this way. Like this room
It was in your bathroom. Like
when we renovated this room in 2022, it was like this table and some chairs. There was none of this stuff. There was no audio treatment. There was no extra lighting. Like it was janky. But it was that same thing. It's like we just had to start. We sat in chairs like up against the wall. There was no separation.
Like, what were we doing?
Well, but here's what we were doing. We were actually doing a video newsletter. So our function was, how do we communicate to our people from a distance because we're in lockdown, but we can be at our office. And we're like, well, let's just do a video newsletter. So it kind of started that way. I'm like, you guys, you know what this is? Like, it kind of dawned on me one day. I'm like, we're kind of running a podcast. Yep. And so I was like, well, if we're going to do that, then let's just set it up like we are and then start doing it all that way all the time. Yeah. And then one thing becomes another and another. And now it's, we're running multiple shows out of the same place and the primary one that started it all.
Yeah, and I think that's a important rule that I feel like in podcasting, or especially when you go from audio to video, is to have that flexibility to let it grow and flourish the way it should, as opposed to the way you think it's supposed to be in a box. What I thought was supposed to be this boxy certain way of talking, interviewing people changed, and I was like, that's not really me. And I think the unique part of podcasting is you have all these people there doing it where against, like, let's say for newscasting, right? Newscasting, everyone speaks the same way. Everyone's supposed to present the same way. In podcasting, it's like you can have a 16-year-old talking about video games, and then you have someone that's 70 years old talking about stocks. It's so you can just do so many things. So the ability to just let it grow and be yourself, allow it to figure out where it needs to go in order to gain an audience, but also stay true to the core of what you want to do.
That's such a good point. I have like 5 thoughts firing off at the same time,
Bring it up.
which is what you said, right? So even mentioning Pam, like Pam does hers by Zoom. Pam started by doing, I think, by audio first, but then she also now does some video podcasts. So there's variety. Number one, there's no defined right way to get out the gate.
Right.
Just get started. That's the first thing. A lot of times, honestly, they go, oh my God, I'm intimidated. There's all this stuff happening. No, it's okay. Don't worry about that. The other thing I'd say is, yes, there's an expectation because of our preconditioning of what people sound like in certain spaces. So it's like, yeah, when you watch the news, you expect it to be like, tonight at 6:30,
Right.
Jet wears a black shirt again. And you're like,
Yeah.
so does Andy.
Yeah, and I
in
think
podcasting, they want you to be you.
yeah,
Like, I want to show up and see Jet. I
Right.
want to see Andy be Andy, not some fake ass version of Jet or Andy.
yeah. Who you are, I think, in podcasting really speaks true to the platform, right? I think this is why there's I don't know what was the last time I looked. There was like tens of thousands of podcasts out there, and then what each of us are trying to bring to it is this something in our purpose against what's going to go viral. So I think you can find that space in there where it's like it's comfortable for you to express yourself, and you're not always chasing that virality of going, I need something that's going to get a million views. I think once you start to lean too far into that space, you're going to eventually lose the core of what you want to do, right? You want to stick to that.
That's a great point, and you don't know you're tripping on a landmine that we just talked about yesterday on a call. Like yesterday on a creators mastermind call, the person who was hosting was saying, like, going viral is not all you think it is, because if you go viral and let's say you add 100,000 followers because you have something that cracks off for like 10 or 20 million views, like something super crazy. But if it's something that's so different than your normal content, your follow-up videos from that viral one are going to be garbage in the analytics, because it's not the same thing that you got the like for. Yeah. So I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds like Groupon, because people who love, not all people, but in general, if you like the deal, you're there for the deal, and there's not like a brand affinity or an attachment to it, or like getting locked in. But it's the same things with content. And with podcasts, it's like, be yourself. That's the best thing you could do for your show or your conversations is you be you, because the people that like you being you are the ones that are going to return.
Yeah.
If you like fake someone out, if you head fake somebody and you get a big net of 100,000 new followers or something, and then you don't do that same head fake all the time, they're going to just start they're going to totally kill your algorithm, because you're not going to get spun up.
And I think purpose is so important in this. When I first started, the first couple of months, I joined a bunch of Facebook groups that were about podcasters and people, and you'd be surprised how many people. I mean, it's tens of thousands. And there was this older lady that was in there, and she had said, I just hit my 1,000th download, right? And we were all like, yes. And then someone was like, how long did that take? And then she said, it's almost 4 years. And I was like, do the math. I was like, that's crazy. But she didn't do it for the numbers, right? She did it because she was like, I get to talk about, I think it was like baking. She just talked about baking and how she loved it. And it was audio. It wasn't even video. So she didn't even get to show it. It was just her love of going. She's like, this is just my outlet. So I think when people get into podcasting, some of the things that you want to remember, right? This is not all about trying to hit numbers, getting sponsorships, or trying to get make yourself go viral. Sometimes it's just an expression. And I think like for me, it clips a lot of those things. Like I think naturally I'm a more of an artsy brain. You know, I grew up um drawing, painting, getting into music. And I think when you get into this business world, especially with credit card processing, it's a lot of numbers. You get in there, you're just like working with businesses and you don't get to express that artistic side. So it kind of gets me into expression, being able to help people, and then also this challenge of trying to figure out something that I'm not good at and trying to get better at and trying to have this. I don't know where that checker flag is. I don't know where it is. This could be going on for 10 years, 20 years, whatever, but I'm just enjoying getting to know people and interviewing people, so it's great.
There's so many key things you're saying right there because yes, you're in a very data intensive, like bread and butter type business, right? The numbers and it's all that, but also that creative expression side is super important. And I think something that I've been trying to help bring out in people who are considering doing this is that match of where the business and creativity can intersect.
Yeah.
And I have had to do that in my career, having a creative agency before and having a business number kind of work in the mortgage field before, and but who I am is that like creator that loves business and that business person who's also good at creating. And it's like I want to help more people like learn how to do that and be okay with whatever that pace is. Someone else's pace in podcast space isn't yours. Like
Yeah.
you may have a lot more followers than I do. You may have a lot more views than I do. Why should I care about
Yeah.
that? If our viewers aren't the same, that doesn't matter. I still have the people I'm going to talk to, the legacy I'm going to leave, the things I want to ask, things I want to talk about, and the business I need to promote. And so I have to remind people to kind of to your point about on this Facebook group as people are just starting and people are just getting their 1,000th download, whatever. Like everybody has their first day.
Mm-hmm.
Like you had your first day in business at your first year in whatever industry you're in right now.
Yeah.
You have your first show. You have your first time as a
Yeah.
your first time as a guest. And like everybody does, even if they have 5 million followers, they had their first show too at some point. So remember that. The other thing I'm going to say, and this is a little bit heavier, is listen, back when websites were coming around, a lot of people said, "What do I need a website for?
Yeah.
I've got a Rolodex." And then guess what? Now you have a website. And then you got a website, people are like, social media. You're like, what do I need social media for? I got a website.
Yeah.
And this is podcasting. Wow, what do I need podcasting for? I got social media. Like
Yeah.
you're going to do it or not.
There's data that's showing that even CEOs are getting into podcasting or going to interviewed for podcasting because they're seeing that consumers are wanting to find out who's behind the business. So this is something for you as business owners to get out there and start to figure out platforms that work for you, right? I don't suggest that if you are a baker and you have a bakery to go on a sports media podcast. It might be a long reach to try to get those customers, but I think if you methodically go out there and start to figure out, okay, who are my consumers? Who are my demographics that I want to talk to? Find those platforms. There's so many platforms. I mean, there are people making podcasts about anything right now.
You know the grandma, she's on YouTube, and it's more of a baking and cooking show, but she's like, hey, like, it's kind of like, oh, you don't have a grandma? I'll be your grandma.
Yeah.
And like, that's her whole approach. She has, I think she has millions of followers now. I'm going to have to look after we're done here, but the last time I looked, I think she had like 1.25 million followers. And she's just like, today I'm going to teach you how to bake my favorite waffles or whatever. I'm like, dude, people that don't have grandmas, don't have, or can't talk to them or whatever, like, they go there and they like, you go read the comments. It's literally people like, thank you so much. This is awesome. It's the most wholesome thing I've seen all month or all year, whatever. And she's like in her 70s.
Yeah.
You're not too old to start this. The other thing I want to say, have you seen the social media footage of the guy? He's an old like sniper from Vietnam era or something. And he plays, I don't know if it's not World of Warcraft. I don't know if he's playing like
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty or something. And he's just murdering everybody. And he's like, and it's like he's on the lower screen and he's got his gameplay at the top of the screen and he's just taking out everybody.
He's so fun to watch.
He's got to be in his 70s. I'm like, this guy's having the time of his life.
Yeah. He's reliving the glory days of just shooting people down.
Digitally. And I'm like, this, and dude, he gets millions and millions of views. Not because he was setting out to, but he's like he's actually, it's kind of like a soft, hard flex. He's like, I used to really do this.
Yeah.
And he's out there doing it on.
And to that point, there is I'm starting to feel like as going into my year 2 of podcasting, there is this understanding of what I need to look at in order to make it work, right? And not explain. So when I was doing it, I was just when I started, I was like, I'm just gonna put it out there, let it figure out where it needs to go. And then I started looking at data, which for me is important, not so much to go viral, but I wanted to see what was working and what wasn't working. So, and it was really bizarre things. So this is something, this funny. When I was predominantly getting 75 to 78% men coming to my show, and it didn't make sense to me because I was like, what is going on? Like, why? I would think it would be at least half and half. I don't know why men would be watching me talk to business people. And then so I started riding this wave of trying to figure out, well, maybe it's the thumbnails, right? So I was I would say if I had a female guest, I was like, let me test this out. If it drives this more, or if I have a male guest, if it's going to drive women more to see it. I was just looking at all types of data. Nothing changed. And then I one day I didn't see this data in the YouTube side, but I went and looked and see what was the number one search for keyword search for my show, and it was California booty, like Booty. And I think what was happening, this is my guess, and that's why it made sense to so many men. So what I think was happening was people were putting on California booty, but it went to business first. I don't know if that was the thing, and then clicked on it because I was getting sort of some dislikes too. So I think they were like, "Wait, wasn't what I was going after."
Oh my
So I think
gosh.
there was this data. So
That's crazy.
I was like, we have to try to market this a little bit more. So then I started shifting. Like, well, I had a sort of a backlog of female guests. I'm like, I'm gonna try to see where if I can split this up and have men first, bring back some women. I don't know. I was trying all these things and nothing changed. And I was like, what am I doing? What was I? I'm losing focus of what I'm trying to do in this podcast because I'm looking at data just to try to appease the crowd and make this work better for me. So I just was like, you know what? I'm gonna forget about this and go back to it. And to this day, a year later, nothing's changed. It's literally the same data. So there's
Wow.
just a connection. I think
Yeah.
the only thing that has changed was uh, age demographic went from, I was at one point 35 to 55, and it started bumping up. So I
Mm.
started getting into like the 60s and 70s. So there must have been some guests that were on there that connected with that crowd
Mhm.
more. So it's just interesting things, and you start to learn what's happening from just one thing. And we talk about black shirts. There was a couple episodes I did not wear a black shirt, and the views went down, and I was like, that's crazy, that's just black
Really?
shirts, yeah. And
Well,
uh
do you think that like that's the main culprit, or is there
I don't know.
other
I don't
things
know,
that
but it was just coincidental that
this
two
is
shows back to back, I didn't have black shirts, and then there was just no movement on it. And I was like, man, what are we doing here? So I went back to black, and I was like, okay, it's working again. So
there's
it's
another lurking keyword out there. There's another lurking keyword that starts with B that's
yeah,
not yeah,
yeah.
it's
Yeah, so
undermining you.
it's interesting. I think the when you start to get into depths of podcasting, especially on YouTube side, you start
Mhm.
to try to figure out what data is working, right? And like I said, it's not really to go viral, but to have consistency in what you're doing. And it takes a little bit of practice to look at data and make sense of it. And I felt like that was where the data side of my brain started helping me to figure out where I needed to go and guiding me just a little bit. But I at the core of it, I didn't want to get away, my purpose calling someone a show, the personal side of business is always just trying to tell those stories and
Yeah.
get to the core of what people are, talking about.
Well, I want to go right to that, but I want to make a comment first because, and then I want to make sure this isn't overly technical. But I cannot tell you how many times I will follow up with someone who we're producing a show for. They're a couple episodes in. I go, hey, how do your analytics look? And they go, what do you mean? What? Go to YouTube Studio. What's YouTube Studio? I'm like
Yeah.
the dashboard where you like upload the thing. Like go look at the analytics and it shows you all this. Like, oh, I didn't know that. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to be on the front end teaching this more
Yeah.
because we're getting pigeonholed in just the production part.
Yeah.
But because of my own necessity for my own purposes, I'm getting deep into the analytics side.
Yeah.
So again, without being overly technical, if you already have a podcast and you have not looked in YouTube Studio yet, go check out your analytics and see your demographics. You'll get a heat map of when people are watching you, what day of the week, what time of the day, all sorts of stuff. And you can correlate that to when are you scheduling it, your thumbnail stuff, your odd hashtags,
Yeah.
or
And
keywords.
and that's an important part, right? That one of the things I learned from all that YouTube Studio was when I release, especially the shorts to come out, it it if I release the shorts, you know, there used to be some statistic, I think, for Instagram where you wanted to post like midday, I think it's like 9 to 12 or something along those lines. For me, because I started looking at the data, the audience that most likely listens to my podcast or watches it are going to be professionals or people who already have businesses, so they're not going to watch until the evening. So I started learning that when I would post shorts or post a video during the day, it would get very few views and likes. But if I did it around between 4:30 to 6:30, it was a difference. It would be a difference of a couple hundred to thousands. So I started learning. It was like, and then what day it was. So figuring out the days too. For me, I think Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays are the best days I've learned. But that's all from the data you're saying on YouTube Studio.
Well, and when you're starting, the data is going to heavily be reliant on when you air things.
Yeah.
Like if you air it on Thursday and a bunch of people watch on Thursday, your heat map's going to say, well, Thursday, most people are watching you.
Yeah.
Over time, as it gets older and you have a lot more content, it's going to have a better mix and it's going to spread out. But I also want to point out to you, if you're like, wow, that sounds pretty nerdy. Yeah, you're right. But what Jet is demonstrating to you is the like focus and the attention to detail that is imperative if you really wanted to get teeth so that you can have the outcome on the other side. Yeah. If your podcast is as a hobby, maybe you care less about this. If you have a specific product or service that you're looking to help gain more visibility for or credibility and authority as a professional for, the data is going to be really critical in determining how you can pour that over into conversion of incoming leads or conversations or sales opportunities, however you like name it. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah. And for me, the podcast, my podcast actually has become a business. I actually created a business for it, a business entity, and now I just got through the monetary partnership, the first level for YouTube, and so those things that I wasn't really thinking about in the beginning are now kind of making me focus. Go, this could be something, and my goal. I had set this. I think someone asked me this, 2 months into my podcasting last year, like, what do you want to do out of this? I was like, I would like to one day be able to give back to small businesses through the YouTube. Like, I don't know how that looks like. It could be sponsorships or giving money, and we're able to help sponsor programs, incubators, try to get them going. So I was like, okay, it's gotten one step closer to that, and maybe 5 years from now, it'll have this ecosystem that can work to be able to do that for small businesses. So, that stuff can transpire really quickly. And I think on YouTube, I mean, there could be someone that's talking about, just welding or something, and it catches on fire, and all of a sudden they're like, this is actually more my business than welding was.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I want to talk about the personal side of business because I mean, it's what your show is. And I mean, you're doing something that fascinates me, which you're trying to get to know the person behind it. Back to your comment about, CEOs even doing shows. That is like firing off right now. I mean, there's a couple companies I can think off the top of my head where the CEO now has built a part of their office or their commercial building dedicated to them showing up on the mic once a week or more often, specifically so that they're more well known, and even like dressed down too. I'm like in their casuals. And the reason I'm saying all this is because we're in this era where, as consumers, whether we admit it or not, or whether we are aware of it or not, our like BS meter is sensing BS when we see it.
Yeah.
And it's sensing authenticity when we see it. Now with the shove of like AI, everything, ever, all the time, the human part of this experiment is becoming more critical. not just having a personal brand as part of your business, but people want to know the CEO. Like, and this example gets used all the time. There are way more people that follow Elon Musk than Tesla. Love him or hate him. The point is that if he's the CEO of Tesla, but do you follow Tesla and watch what they're putting down their account, or are you looking at what Elon shares?
Yeah.
You're probably looking at him more. So to that point, turning all that into a show that's about the personal side of business, I think it's brilliant.
Thank you.
Very long compliment there, Jet.
Thank you.
But super brilliant idea. Most recently, I just watched your interview with Matt Pare, who I've known Matt for over 12 years now. And Matt used to come to our homeless outreach. So, by the way, those of you who don't know, Matt Pare, beyond what he does professionally, that guy would bring his family and his wife and his kids out to our homeless outreach, and they'd come and distribute to people that are on the streets of downtown. He's a good dude, and it was just so awesome to watch him talk with you and share their exploits of traveling around the world, 47 countries now. I just love what you're doing, man. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to me. I think over the years of working with so many businesses in different platforms that I've been, hired to do, there have been so many curiosities of people as I'm getting to know them and their business. I'm like, whoa, you were like an ex-Marine that decided to do this. Like, you're like, what led you to that, right? And I think as I was studying to get into different or listening to different podcasts before I started mine, I felt like most podcasts at the time were kind of shifting either a technical side of what businesses did, or they were really just talking to the people. And I was like, well, I wanted to somehow connect these two worlds and go, when someone listens to it, okay, this person started a restaurant, but they used to be, I don't know, Olympic skier. What brought that together? Because there's moments, and every single person I think so far that I've interviewed in 2025 has had some sort of moment in their lives, and it could be religious, it could be this personal, a death, it could be something that some illness that brought them to change and go, I don't want to live this 9 to 5 anymore. I want to do something for myself. I want to go start this something that maybe I can make a difference, or I want to have wealth enough to be able to do things for my life. And it's fascinating. It's just fascinating that every single person I interview brings out something different. I'm like, the same thing with Matt. Like, I knew he traveled, but I didn't know to the extent. I'm like, you've done the 7 wonders of the world. I didn't even know that, I've known him for years. So, but you hear more and more people's story, and you're like, I want to get to these, like, I don't know. There's so many different people that I've seen online and I'll reach out to, and now we're trying to coordinate like interviews, but I'm like, hey, I've been following you for a while on Instagram. I want to know what this is all about. And there's like, yeah, that's cool. Let's try to do it. Right. But now it becomes logistics, right? You're adding all these different things. And I know like we can do remote, but for me, the excitement is to have someone sitting in front of you and be able to talk.
Yeah.
So
like this.
Yeah.
I love this part of podcasting too, because some of my experience with people is only through the screen. It is only through their interactions in the comments or the DMs or FaceTime, even Zoom call. But being in person is so awesome. It's one of the reasons why we started a chapter show for our BNI chapter. Is like I want my members to actually firsthand be able to sit in the chair, and then also have a chance at saying what they want to say about themselves, their own story. So in a weird kind of way, the personal side of business actually comes out in our BNI Partners in Excellence show, because we not everyone will go and do this on their own, but if they have a person they know and trust to come and sit with and do it, they freely do it, and it's been really enjoyable for me. Because I know you can relate to that, because I know I see the same sense of curiosity in you as I'm watching you host your show. I'm watching you be genuinely curious about why is that the way this is. Where did you get to that point? How did this happen? And not out of just trying to create a storyline or a viral minute or so. It's like you just care about the person.
It's funny, I thought about this there was this thing where I was younger. I used to be made fun of by my friends for asking really curious questions, just bizarre things. It would be like, why do owls like can turn their heads at this? But this was pre-internet, right? So when I would ask it, they were like, those are stupid questions. And I started realizing that as an adult, now I'm curious about things in life, but also about people, because I think the way that we all interact, especially in businesses, you can see that you can see that in a person who's been doing this for 15 years against someone who's just like, I'm brand new to this industry, I love this. And you're like, well, why hasn't that person left, and what brought this person into it? And you start to ask all these different questions, and then you get these sometimes crazy stories, and then you're just like, oh my god, I would never have guessed that you would have said that coming out of your mouth, you know?
And sometimes that level of vulnerability gets very serious very quickly.
Yeah.
I've had people in here, they talk about having very depressive seasons of their life and that they were considering suicide. And then that story on on the show turns into them looking at the camera and saying, if you're feeling that way, I want you to DM me right away. I will call you. I will talk
Mm.
to you. And like that's a powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know they're gonna say that. I don't even know it was true for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then like it happens, and I'm like, oh man, this could really be reaching somebody who may be unreachable in other ways right now. And they're gonna see this on their phone or their laptop or whatever at some point and go, oh yeah, maybe I should just reach out
Yeah.
and be honest about I'm feeling a little bit, cloudy right now, a
Yeah.
little gloomy. Um, so I guess what I'm curious about is what did you have to overcome to become the show host? Because you're still Jet. I see
Yeah.
I see you online.
Yeah.
I see you now. You're still Jet. So what did anything have to change or occur for you to be able to sit in this type of seat and then talk to somebody at length?
I felt like for me, I wanted to have a professionalism on that show that would allow guests to, one, be led, because as a host, I mean, as you know, like you're kind of driving this show to make sure it's going to get from beginning of a show to the end, and then that person has to feel comfortable, and then also you have to have a lot of there's a lot of things going on. So I'm going to explain this to you, and I'm sure you go through this, right? When you're interviewing a guest, at least for me, you're you have a bunch of things that you would like to talk to people about, especially that guest. And if you do a little bit of background research, you're going to find out you have some information like, okay, these are things I'm curious about. And then you don't know, like you were saying, what the other person is going to say. So you're like, well, I have this skeleton frame of what I want to talk to you about. But if things start going off to the side, do I bring it back or do I just flow with this? So those things are going on in your head. And then as you're doing that, you're like, well, I also have to think of, are things working right now? Like, what is the audience? I'm thinking of all these things. Like, is the audience being perceptive to this? Are we clear? Are we talking to each other in an appropriate manner? Like, there's all these things going on. And I remember thinking, I'm gonna listen to a bunch of really high end podcasts and see what's the low lift that I can connect to those hosts with, right? There's just little things that I can connect with and see if that's what makes the show great. And then you start to throw darts at it and start to practice. So I was
It's
practicing
great.
kind of by
It's
myself for
so
about a
great.
month and just go, I'm going to start to interview people. And I think most of my friends didn't realize this, but when I was on a phone with them, I would do that. So I was just asking them about things and just started practicing. How did that feel? And then I remember the first two episodes that went on, I was like, I don't know what's going on right now, like in my head, but I was like, but we still have to keep doing this, right? So there's a lot of, I think, things you have to, I feel like you do the work prior to it, understanding some camera angles and sound and watching and listening to other podcasts to do as training, so you can get into this and go, okay, these are the things I'm going to try to do, and if it doesn't work, it's fine. But if I can center this and to make it so that it's focused enough to get a message across, and I'll start to tweak things as I go.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, it's just a lot of, I think, um background work for the first couple months before I actually went and interviewed the first one. Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought up the point about watching other high-end podcasters because you can actually watch other people's shows and you can maybe see some similarities in the character traits in their conversations that are
Mhm.
similar to yours.
Mhm.
And then use those to your, I'll say, advantage because that's going to be natural for you, probably maybe most comfortable to talk at a certain pace in a certain way. I mean, I'm pretty expressive. Let me look at right now. I'm
Yeah,
saying I'm
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
expressive when I'm
yeah.
using my hands. But I mean, when I'm excited about something, I am like this. And this isn't performative. I am excited about learning about people and helping other people who are maybe hesitant, like get into the game and then have success in this, even if they don't do it here. I've said that to you guys a lot, all the time. I don't care if you do it here or not. You just need to go do it. There's so many lived stories that never get retold and they just die off and they're never told again, or they're never even captured. And every single day, we are out doing things or thinking things, saying things, sharing a story, or having a moment that just goes uncaptured. And like there's a part of my heart that like dies every time I think of that. I'm like, oh man. And then sometimes you catch those moments like, wow, yeah, that's why. That thing,
Yeah.
that's why.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's moments like that when you're interviewing someone, and it's happened to me multiple times. You're like, that was it. I don't know what that was, but there was a connection between me and the guests, and there was so much information in that in such a short period of time that I hope that that gets captured on the camera or audio that someone can understand. And I think a lot of the times in you're if you really work on this as a craft, you end up being a host, or you're even if you're a guest on multiple shows. I think taking a listen and going back and seeing where you can improve is always key, right? I'm sure you've done that since you started and go, okay, this sucks, and then but someone goes, I didn't even notice that, right? But it's you critiquing yourself to try to get better.
I constantly listen and watch because I'm critical of myself
Yeah,
way more than I know someone else on
yeah,
the
yeah,
screen is, but it's because I want everyone to be comfortable.
yeah,
I want the best version of them to show up in a non-performative way as
yeah,
well, in the most authentic way. Well, that means I got to be able to usher that in, welcome it, and then let it feel like it
yeah.
can sit.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the things I learned early on was like a conversation that you and I have before we actually started shooting was just to talk to get in this flow, and then it's kind of like a like warming up, right? For if you're like playing basketball or something, you're like, well, I don't want to just jump on the court and start shooting.
Yeah.
I want to get some things and get going, and I've learned that that helps everyone relax and the guests get going, and when when I started to, it was I wanted to learn. So I went to college for multimedia, but this was before things were digital. This was I was
We're pre-internet people.
yeah, 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 and I was splicing film
Oh,
to tack. So that's how far
are
back.
you for real?
Yeah, that's how. And I remember, so just like a little bit of history, so it makes sense. My senior year in it was 2000. Good, this is go. I feel ancient now. 2000. I graduated and I started walking out, and my professor goes here. So Apple just came up with this editing software that they're releasing, and I was like, "Where's this been? I've been literally working on VHS." And then splicing film together to make 2-minute reels. And I was like, this is crazy. And I saw this and I was like, I'll come back to this one day. And I didn't really do that. I just kind of like left it. And then I would periodically just want to edit things. And so I started getting to like Final Cut Pro and learning some editing software in Adobe. And when I got back into all of this, I was like, I feel so far removed from it that I need to really go back. I went on YouTube and started watching videos and learning about it just so I have some idea, because I knew I was going to have to edit my videos. And then I knew that digital cameras have come along so far. I mean, I had some in just using in my life, but I was like, this is a whole nother level that I have to try to learn it.
Mhm.
And luckily, I had people that I can reach out to and then bounce ideas off of. But trying to learn all this, I think helps makes you a better uh, video and audio podcaster, because you're understanding levels and being able to figure out what's good for lighting. Right? There was
I mean, you're literally doing production
yeah,
duties.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, and
yeah,
again, you can go as long down that rabbit hole as you want, or as shallow as you choose to, based on what you're going to do, how much money you're going to put, time, effort, and all that, and whether or not you're having other people do that for you or you're doing it yourself. Like, I think that's another misconception people have is like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do it. Find a place that does all that. Like that's turnkey. You can show up, you be you, and then when you're done being you, leave. Leave. And then the stuff can be delivered to you when it's finished and ready for you to post.
Yeah, you know how nice it is to walk in, give someone SD cards, and then walk out, and you're like, oh, that's amazing, you know?
Dude, you know what's even more amazing? They don't even have to bring their cards. Like, like that. There's so much like psychology behind the way this is. It's truly turnkey. Because you're gonna leave today, and then you're gonna get this back. Like, we don't want people to have to feel like there's a heavy lift for them to do it. Because again, if it's hard, difficult, all this, we can have too many barriers stack up. We go, you know what? I just rather not. I just rather not. But what's so tragic to me, before I get to my next question, is what's so tragic to me is that you and I both know people in B&I, networking, and in business for so long that have really, really successful careers of 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And they look at me and they go, I don't know what I'd talk about. And my answer is, how did you make it this far? You talk about it all day long, every day. For the amount of success you've had, the way it just like comes right out, like, you know what to say. I just want to encourage you. Like, you already know what to say. You already know what to ask. You do it constantly. And that's what's driven your business success this far. All this is for a place for you to do it that has a little extra reach than that one phone call one-on-one or the group setting that you have as well. This is just another place to plug in the value of your message and your service that you offer to the public.
Yeah. And, you know, to your point, what you said before, talking about when people didn't think websites were important, right? And if you remember during COVID, websites became such a crucial part of a lot of businesses because the ones that didn't, people were like, I don't know where that is. I don't know if they exist, right? But the ones that had websites and now, they were allowed to add e-commerce, online ordering to it, or now be able to play with social media because they had a connective piece to it. Podcasts, I believe, in the next 2 to 3 years, or if you are a business owner, you're not on it, you're going to be left behind. You're going to be 10 miles behind. And then you're like, I wish I would have started that sooner.
I agree that it's going to be the next qualifier. I think it's the next qualifier because the argument is, well, that's why I called the show Everybody Has a Podcast, is because people are, well, everybody has one. Why would I do one? I'm going to ask you the same question. Everyone has a website. Why should you have one? If you ask your argument to me, then just turn your website off too. Turn your email off while you're at it. Everyone has an email account. Like, but that's not really my attitude. I'm being mean. But you'll figure out a way. People go. One of the ways I know we share people to get their show right to their hands of their audience is email it. Like, use it as part of your email newsletter that you send to your client database, if it's every week or every month or however often the frequency is. If you've already created the content in the show, just go, hey, here's our latest conversation. We talked about the new tax changes that are happening in 2026. Let me know if you have any questions. Click here to email me or whatever. Like, just, you have a way to carve through all that everybody has one stuff to still maintain relevance.
Yeah. And now, so here's something I've asked myself, and I've thought of this for what happens for those people that are extreme introverts, don't want to be on camera, on microphone, and couldn't feel comfortable, right? So we're talking about people who are been B&I for a while and they're comfortable being in front of a group of people and talking. And you've seen people from B&I that first get into B&I are really shy and quiet, and then 2 years later they're like, yeah, we're talking, and we can't shut them up. You're like, hey, like, you talk about your business, but it's great. It's such a great roller coaster. But what happens to those regular business owners that are like, I can't do this. No way I can talk about this, right? So I've always thought about this, and like, they start to get creative with that, right? There might be someone, it could be your kids or something that they're work for you and they can get out there, or you have someone in the business that a coworker that loves to talk, and get them in front of, get something that will spark something, and you never know where it's going to go.
There are a lot of answers to that. And I think part of it, when it comes to, if you're strictly just talking about podcasting, my own personal opinion is talk about the things that you enjoy talking about. And if they're related to your business, then great. And you can do a faceless podcast these days. You can do a podcast that is simply audio that doesn't have to reveal your face. You can also have guests on where they're the person talking all the time and you're just hosting. There are some extremely introverted people I know that are still doing this because even though they may be more technical or focus on the detail, they can let someone else on their team shine.
Yeah.
So they'll have a conversation and tee up 5, 6, 7 questions for their teammate that's on the extroverted sales side or marketing, answer those questions. So there's that way. The other method when it comes to like the social stuff is do the fly on the wall method. It's kind of like a semi-faceless. Find the person in your office that's really good at social media, like in their private time and personal time, and like wrap that into their little job description, and they capture B-roll during the day.
Yeah.
And then maybe they capture you during a conversation and they go, hey, that was really cool. You just told that person XYZ. I hear you say that 30 times a week. Say that little audio bit. It's maybe 2 sentences, and then let them put that on the little reel for Instagram or the YouTube short while they're also showing the business at work. It's a great way to get some behind the scenes footage. It's a great way to still have your voice carry out into the space without it having to reveal your face.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if you can sit down and get creative and start to figure out where that path is for you, one, it's going to grow. Two, I think it allows you to just see yourself in the business in a different light. Right. I think it's amazing what podcasting in different forms can do right now. And, you know, if you don't want to get in front of camera, do it for the audio version and just start to work that way and see where that leads you. What I thought where I am right now in my podcasting business and life is not where I thought I was going to be a year ago. I thought there was going to be all these things that were going to happen, and then my focus was going to be like, well, we're going to do this, this, and this, and then now it's really about guests. So over I would say the last 4 months, I think as my podcast has grown, I've gotten uh, people have reached out to me from all corners of the world. I actually had someone just from Australia reach out to me and then wanted to be in the podcast. And the guests that I'm talking to now are really interesting. And it's starting to expand where their personal and business life is sort of this blend. Like sometimes they're a business coach and but they're also a life coach, and things are a little bit different. Where a year ago I thought I was like, we're just going to get into the handyman, right? We're going to interview the guy that takes out my trash and just get that life. And I think that will eventually happen again, but my path is starting to grow, and I'm like, I'm just going to go with this. I'm just going to let this fly and see what happens, and the what I think is going to happen next, I stop doing. I'm just trying to get through this list of people that have reached out to me, want to talk to me. We're going to figure out how to meet. And then, I used to think I had to put out one a week and stuff. And it was just so stressful for me to do that. So I was like, I'm going to do it at a pace that makes me feel comfortable and I enjoy. And so now it's starting to change into that form instead of me trying to keep up with the Jones.
Yeah, the thing I want to make sure I highlight in this point, because it's a great point, and it is something that's real for people who are content creators, is it can feel arduous at first.
Yeah.
So typically, there's 3 big things people tell me. I don't like the way I look or sound. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Again, how do you have such a storied 20-year career? You don't know what to talk about. And then they don't have a system to follow. So if it can become part of what you do during the week or during the month and you schedule it,
Mhm.
and it also is going to be a composition of the things you talk about most often, are most familiar with, or are most noted for, it actually just becomes a new platform that you say a lot of the same things and do a lot of the same things that you normally do in your week, your day, your month, your quarter, and year, so that it isn't like you have to completely be 100% different style to come and do the work. So having a schedule, having some sort of system to follow always works. And then there is a level of like, hey, get over it. Like I told you, no one's hiring me to do podcasts because of my haircut. So I look the way I look, man. I show up this way in person, by the way, in case you're wondering if I only look like this on screen. When I meet you in person, I'm also bald. Just so you know.
And you know what's funny about that? To your point, when that first month of watching myself, and when you're editing, you're looking at yourself for probably like 30 hours a month. You're like, this is just like, do I look like that? Is that what I look like? And what's funny is people were just like, what? I don't know what you're talking about, but you're just critiquing every bit of you.
Yeah.
And then the other point that you made, which I was gonna talk about early on, was organization, right? Scheduling, and also as you're recording this stuff, where you putting files, storage. For me, it's like, having external storage. I have to buy a second one. First one filled up, which I had to learn. I was like, oh, 1 terabyte doesn't hold that much. Like, yeah, it's like, you're like, I was like, this sounds like a lot. You're like, that was like 30 days worth.
Sorry,
of it.
that was a super dorky reaction. Like right now, I was like, "Oh, what a nerd!"
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you, thank you. Yeah,
Right. They were like, I don't know, why is he laughing so?
dude. No, quick disclaimer. We're running an 11 terabyte Dropbox right now, and we have to clear it so we can keep. But I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
go to like 15 because the shows just
Yeah.
keep mounting. But again, I would love that problem because the indication that people are actually starting to do it.
Yeah.
Not just because my business is healthy, but because people that I have been trying to encourage to step in are doing it, and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Sorry, back to your point about organization.
yeah, but learning things, and I had to do research into um a lot of digital things, like different software that I use. I think I'm probably into a point where the amount of software that I have signed up for and pay for every month is the same level of the streaming services that I'm trying to keep up with, right? I'm like, I don't am I using this? But in the beginning, I'm just like trying to make sure I have everything correctly.
Yeah.
And then you start to get your legs underneath you, and you're like, I don't even use this. I just
Mhm.
was so worried that I might need it that I signed up for it.
Well, it's a good point about workflow, and you're going to have a workflow at your office and your team, and then this is going to have its own workflow too. And if those can kind of coalesce and coincide, that's even better. So, one of the things to again keep it easy on the customer side is making sure everything's packaged properly, named properly, so there's no take the guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
Here are your vertical shorts. They're in a folder that's called vertical shorts.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
I used to put in order by numbers, 1, 2, 3, and I'd be like, well, what do I do for the next guest? And there was a whole bunch of 1, 2, 3, 4s floating around on my hard drive. So I was like, well, I got to start putting names. And then I was like, well, that person has multiple files. So you start to build this system. And I think
Yeah.
one of the things that I felt like organization had to be such a key for me to, one, be able to send it out when I needed to, but also for me to keep some sort of sanity. So I didn't have this, because like, let's say I had for Matt, right? I would put Matt, but then I was like, well, what happens if I have a second or third Matt, right? Like I had to figure out that organization. So becoming really good at a lot of back end stuff is, I think, important in podcasting as well.
Can I say one real, maybe super nerdy thing right now? On the back end, on the SEO, the way you name your file is the way it gets uploaded to YouTube.
Oh,
So
wow.
when I upload this as the personal side of business, Jet Bunditwong, that's actually a searchable term when people go into YouTube. So name your files with the person in the show or whatever the topic is. So it's dot MP4.
I did not know that.
There you go. There you go.
Today.
So there's
I'm gonna
little
go back.
there's a little quick search hack for you who are already on YouTube, or if you're not on YouTube, add that into your post-production checklist before you upload. Name your files, the name of your guest, whatever the topic is, or whatever those key search terms are you're hoping to get, not just relying on hashtags.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing on hashtags is I hear both people say, yeah, you still use them, or hashtags are dead because the AI can read all the language in the description, so it doesn't matter anyways. I don't know where I fall in that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of okay if you use them. I don't care if you don't, but
Like it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt you to use it.
it doesn't hurt to use them, but the naming matters.
Yeah.
If I just go Andy and Jet, someone types in Jet, it's going to be mixed in with, California booty or
Yeah,
whatever.
California
It's going to be like,
booty,
wait a minute, that's not the hash. That's not what I need to be found for.
Yeah, and I think the next step for me too was starting to read, educate myself, and then watch videos of people who have done well in online podcasting, especially on video, and then learn from tips they give, right? And sometimes it's like stuff that doesn't pertain to you, but I think a lot of times, just like anything else, if you're becoming a doctor, if you're becoming a welder, you go out there and you're like, oh, this is the most I'm gonna know. I'm good with this. It's never gonna work, right? You're not gonna get better at your craft. For me, it was every week I'm watching and learning something. I'm digging in to see what can help me be better. There's something if you ever get a chance, there is this great interview with Steve Bartlett, who does the Diary of CEO. He's one of he's someone I follow, and I try to figure out what's working for them. And he said this Forbes interview that they have a team that works for him. And I know, if we're in podcasting, we don't get a team of people, but he sends out all the information to a bunch of people that are essentially hired to always look at the videos and thumbnails first before he uploads them. While he's doing that, he takes the data and goes, okay, this is the thumbnails we're going to use. This is the video, title, everything. It's down to a science. And I think he says if I remember correctly, it's like 1,000 people that he sends everything to, and he gets that information back, goes, this is what we're going to use. One of the things he had found one time that was really interesting, he said, well, people were clicking on these certain thumbnails that we couldn't figure out why they were clicking on there. And they just were like, there's no data that connects to this. And he noticed, or someone on the team noticed, that all the thumbnails that people were liking by just for no reason, his hands were in it. So there was this connective piece of a humanality. It wasn't just a talking head anymore, where it was him and the guest. There was more bits and pieces of him. So he was like, well, we're going to try that. And it started working. So it's just little things that you don't know, that I think if you start to learn from other people and go, maybe we'll try this. And you see, it's like, it's kind of like, I always think it's like football, right? It becomes like a copycat league. Like people start seeing what works and go, I'm going to try that and see if it works for me. And if it does, great. If not, you try something else.
Oh, I want to jump off. That was an awesome. You just teed me up to ask a great question. What would you say has you become better at because of starting a show?
Listening and talking at the same time. Like and I think it's not just in the interview situation, it's actually in my life. When I'm talking to friends, I'm trying to process things. So it's become this habit now of, as people are saying something to me, I'm processing it and going, well, what can I add to that? Right. And it's a great thing. I took a improv class,
Ooh, that's hard.
Yeah, 20
That's
years ago.
hard.
And I always tell people, I remember my improv teacher said something. He said, I wish, the one wish he had in life was that everyone took one improv class to be able to listen better, because it teaches you to listen better. I think there's this misconception in improv that you go out there and you just perform, you do things, but it's really vibing off the other person. And throughout life, you have to practice that over and over again in order to make that work. And there were periods where I was like, I want to get back to it. So I'll kind of do that exercise in my head for periods of time. And this podcasting journey has made me go back to that, where I need to listen, but I need to figure out how I can yes and to help that conversation go. And I think if more people can yes and, we, one, be able to help each other, two, get along, and three, be able to push businesses to a higher level, because you're like, well, yes, I have something I can help you with too. And so I'm going to try to give you this fuel to get this fire keep going.
Wow. Dude, that's so good. I think the reps matter. I mean,
Yeah.
the reps
Yeah.
totally matter. And yeah, improv is hard. You do have to listen. I've intentionally sidestepped improv. Like, I love improv. I love making jokes. I love kind of being in the moment and, like, making funny observations and a funny comment that says, "Hey, I saw that or heard that." But the improv, like, that's the thing, I guess, that maybe scares me, is improv. Maybe that's the thing I should probably try.
It's really,
Oh, shoot.
it makes you vulnerable.
Oh, 100%.
There's this
Maybe that's actually what's going on. Is I don't want to do.
Yeah, you have to
Man.
let yourself go. And there's this great exercise, if everyone ever gets to do it, is you have three people, and only one person knows the actual what's going on scenario, right? But they have to get this message across, and there's a sort of a goal there. And the only thing you can do is ask questions. You can't say statements. And so everyone comes in trying to figure out, and you see how hard it is for you to keep asking and not having statements. It's impossible. It's almost impossible until you do it 2 or 3 times, and you're like, okay, we go into this, and it gets funnier. And then what's one of the things that's that's really interesting about improv. If you do improv right, from what I was in this course, it was almost like a year and a half. If you do it right, you start to see that the funny moments in life don't come from people trying to be funny. It's just these mistakes that we trip on. We just say things, funny things by accident.
Hey, do you want to try that exercise right now?
No.
Hey, do you want to try that exercise right now?
Can we do this exercise right now?
Probably. I'm in if you are. Do you want to?
No, see, that's a statement going into the
Dang
question.
it.
Yeah. See how hard it is? See how hard it is?
Shoot. So you
Yeah.
can't even say the
Yeah,
statement
you
before
can't
the
say
question.
it would have to
Dang.
be like this. It would have to be like okay, so I have something in my mind of what I need
Pitch
to
one.
do.
Go ahead.
So did you just get here?
Do you think I did?
Are you able to walk out of here?
Why do you care?
How long have you been here?
Is that any of your business?
Do you have an appointment later?
Do you think that's your right to know? Dang, all my answers are like rigid.
Yeah, but it
Wow.
takes some practice,
Dude,
right?
yeah, it's like
Yeah,
it
it
really
takes
makes your muscle go.
It takes practice, and you're like, my idea was I wanted to see how long you had for this interview, right? I'm trying to
wow.
figure out, but that's the goal. But
Yeah.
then you're like, we have to try to get in the same wavelength. But I remember in that workshops that after a while, when you start to do that with people, you start to get on this weird synergy, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, we're getting to it. And I remember there was one time at the end of class, like 3 people I'd started with ended up getting the same group, and we were just like bam, 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 and we're like, oh, we figured out he's at a shop trying to sell plants.
Oh,
And it was just
wow.
like this quick thing.
Yeah. Wow.
So but it's a muscle
That's
memory you
cool.
were talking about, right?
Yeah, no, I've as you can see in demonstrating that exercise, not very good at it.
Yeah.
my answers are all like why do you care?
Yeah,
I'm all
but
standoffish to you.
yeah, but it happens. We're trying to yes and all the time, and I
Yeah.
think in this podcasting world, if you can start to figure that out with your interview style, like at least for me to be able to get to the yes and of the thought process of where that person's going, because I want them to go to where they're comfortable, but I also want them to go to where I want to get some answers to
Oh,
my
that's so
curiosity.
good. By the way, this is the first time I've ever done like a little improv
Nice,
exercise.
nice.
I don't know that I want to do that again, but actually, I get your point. It's a great way to really flex that creativity and that like your awareness of the own language you use and your acknowledgement of your like language database.
Yeah.
And can you even just stick to the structure of the game?
Yeah,
Can you even just stick to the structure of the thing? That was tough, man. Way tougher than I thought.
yeah. I think if you're trying to make this podcasting situation for yourself, however it is, boxed up into something more, I think you have to get better at just keep improving at things, right? For me, there was a lot of moments where I watched myself and I was like, there was weird pauses. I wanted to fix this. So I would like, I remember Gavin laughed at me. He was on your show, and there was a question. We were in this power group, and we were asking, what is it you wanted to do for 2026? And I said I wanted to improve my articulation of speech. And he was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "But it's because it's moments like this in an interview where I listened to myself and I wanted to get better at articulating ideas and thoughts so that my guests could have a better time of understanding where I wanted to go with it."
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, that's good, man. That's really good. I love this conversation that we're having right now. I know that your effort and intentionality about getting better is also something I want to encourage the people that we have as clients already, and also the people that are thinking about doing podcasts. Like, yeah, don't just feel like you're gonna be stuck in this lane this one time and you're never gonna get better. That's not even true for your career. It's not true for you as a person. You've had a maturity growth chart as a person and as a professional, and you can as a host of a show as well. I want to ask you though to give some words of encouragement. Can I like tee up some questions for you to just like knock out?
Go ahead.
And I'm asking other people this as well because I want to see the compilation of answers. And it is back to the 3 things that I run into all the time when people say I don't know enough, I should start a podcast, or I don't want to, or whatever. They're kind of, I guess, objections, if you will. The first one is, Jet, what do you say to someone who says I don't like the way I look or sound?
You gotta get over it. That's basically, you gotta move on from that. You can't change it. I mean, I guess to a point you can change the way you look a little bit, but it's a part of who you are. I think you have to flip the script and stop saying what's wrong with me and saying this is the unique me that I get to present to other people. Once you flip that mind script, it allows you to just become empowered by who you are as a physical person, and then you get to shine the insides of you, and like who you are as this funny person, as this clever person, as this thoughtful person, right? Get over that pretty quickly. And for me, I think looking at myself when I tell you that 30 hours in that first month, I think helped me get over it fast, because I'm like, well, this is it. There's nothing I can do, you know? I wasn't going to change my whole entire format and go, well, now I'm just going to be in this dark corner with sunglasses on and interview people. I have to just live with this. And, I think you build confidence, because that's, I get it, right? We're in a society that looks can help drive that, the views, the connection on camera, but there's so many components to this: storytelling, laughter, key moments that are genuine that allow people to connect to each other. So get over it, move on, and connect to the strength of who you are.
I not so subtly one time during one of my presentations to my group, I said, "Listen, think of it this way: you're already subjecting the public to how you look right now. You picked that outfit today. You did your hair that way. You're,"
Yeah, yeah,
and I was like, I was kind of like, "Haha, right, guys?"
yeah.
And some people are like,
Huh.
I'm like, even that, right?
That was directly at me.
Next question is: when people say they don't know what the heck they talk about, what would you tell them?
Um, Actually, this is a really important point for me. I came up with skeleton frameworks of where I wanted to go for um, conversations and things like that. And then I think you evolve, right? So, for instance, it was a personal side of business. I wanted to talk about businesses and that journey of getting there, right? So that seems easy in the broad scheme of things, but then you want to start to break that down and go, I would have the beginning would be, well, I wanted to ask the person, get to know them first, so the audience gets to know them and build that trust. And then we start to build that journey of how they get from when they were, if they talked about when they were 5 years old, 6 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old, to that business. So there's this sort of hill that we have to climb. And in the end, in my mind, I'm going, well, we're going to start to finish it when we start to get a feel for where they're at now, and then where they want to be. So I kind of broke this up into like almost like four parts. I don't think everyone has to do that. I think you can do it however you want to. But in my brain, seeing these blocks in my head as I went through the conversation allowed me to do that. And then in those blocks, I would put questions. So every time I have a guest on, or prior to having guests on, I start to I have a Google Doc. I break it up into sections and go, this is where I want to start. And then hopefully I stay somewhere in those lines. And then we have 4 or 5 questions, and I go through. If I get to them, great. If not, I've gotten better at this, having a conversation. So you just have to try to figure out what works for you.
I love the way that you just described that, because what it demonstrates is the common denominator of intentionality and preparation. A lot of times, things going unprepared. Very rarely do you find someone good enough to just shoot from the hip all the time,
Mhm.
everywhere, in every situation, let alone on camera.
Yeah.
And so, especially if you're going to step into this, the intentionality behind that, I think, and the preparation is a really
Yeah.
critical part. And the not knowing what to talk about thing, that can be very specific to people, depending on their level of how vulnerable they choose to be as a person, the complexity or technicality of their company and their business, and the conversation of the guests are going to have. So there's like wiggle room in that as well. But I think being selective on what kind of conversation you want to have, and the tone and pacing of that, is all predetermined, and then it shows up
Yeah.
in the moments just like this. So
And
that was a great answer.
I think some people that are better at off the cuff are probably not going to need to prepare as much. But I think for me, I like to have as much information, because I can, it allows me to kind of go back and forth, right? If I didn't know anything about the guests and I just sat down with it, I'm just like, okay, where am I going to go next? But in my head, I have this structure, so it works for me.
Yeah, that's good, man. So the third thing that people tell me all the time is, I don't have a system to follow. What would you tell them?
I think if you were to start to get into podcasting and you don't know where to start, or you haven't figured out the system, I would reach out to people who are um, approachable that you can connect to that are already doing podcasts, and then ask them all the things that kind of advice where to get started, right? I like you said, I talked to Pam. I had talked to I had to reach out. Actually, there was an SBDC one in Florida, and I started reaching out to them online, just kind of asking them. They have a podcast that started years ago, and then I started emailing people as well. So there were some people that I just reach out to and go, hey, what did you do? And those Facebook groups were huge because there's a lot of comments going on that people are just dying to help, and they're like, this is my journey, this is what I went through, and you're like, oh, this is great. And then you start to figure out, like, going back to my point of what works for you, how to structure, right? There's some people that get in podcasting that I've spoken to that they literally sit at home in a bedroom and just talk, and that's their system, right? But as you get more complex and you get into interviewing people and then scheduling and all this stuff, you have to start to organize that and go, um, in order for me to get to that interview, what are the steps that I need to do in order to do that, right? I have to make sure there's a location, a place, the schedule works for both of us. What are we going to talk about? How long do we have? Start to put all these things up and go, okay, I've got all this. Now the only thing left is to go and sit down and talk to someone.
That's awesome, man. That's really good. I love that advice. Like if you don't have a system, find someone who has one and learn.
Yeah.
Go look for one. Create your own. Like find out what works. You're gonna have evolutions to where you start and then where you are in your first 5 episodes, 10 episodes, and beyond. And then it can grow and change and mature and really become something that is like has a nice workflow, feels comfortable, and then it's that routine. It's the reps, man.
Yeah.
Once you get that system in place, just mashing out those reps is super helpful.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed having you here today, by
Yeah,
the way. So
me too.
thank you for giving me the time to do this. Is there something that we didn't maybe talk about? Because I already know I'm gonna have to have you like full come back.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to have a second round of this because there's a whole bunch of other things I had prepared to talk about. But like you alluded to earlier, sometimes the conversation goes a different way, and then it actually is better than what I thought I was gonna
Yeah.
have today, Jet. So thank you for letting that kind of flexibility happen in our conversation. Anything else you want to say to everybody who might be on the fence today or is not sure about what to do next? What would you say to encourage them?
Yeah, don't think that where you start is going to be where you finish. So you will get better at it. Like you were saying with reps, you're going to find things along the way that are going to change and challenge you. I think the key is to allow that to happen and go with the flow. There have been times, and I won't tell you the guests, so you don't have to figure out. Audio was out on one of my full podcasts, where so I had to go back in and do a separate audio version of myself interviewing that person. So I have to watch that person. So things like that will happen. There's the lighting has been tricky sometimes. You start to learn all these things and you go, that could have stopped me, and that could have stopped me in my tracks, and I could have mulled over it for days and now move on. But you just go, I'm going to move on. I'm going to learn from this and then know next time this is what I need to do in order to get better. So allow yourself to grow and make mistakes and just keep going with it until you figure out what's your niche and then where you can land.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I love that. Sometimes the nitpickiest comments, or not sometimes, most often the most nitpickiest comments or observations aren't coming from people who like you anyways
Yeah.
or follow you, and it's most often a reflection of what's going on and that they're displeased with.
Yeah.
They just sort of lash out at you for some reason, but who cares?
Yeah, let the audience find you. You know, you
Yeah.
don't have not everyone's gonna like what I do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find my people.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm so glad you're here. Do you have a do you have it in you to end this show the way you end your show?
Yeah.
Go ahead, take us out, man.
Wait, it's almost weird. It's like I gotta switch up. Okay, where well, thank you for having me as a guest. You know, this has been a wonderful time, and where you can find me on the personal side of business. If you go to my YouTube, you go to my website, personalsideofbusiness.com, and then you can find me on social media as well. And if you need to reach out to me, you can reach out to me there. And this has been a wonderful time on here, and hope you get to learning about the personal side of business and being a podcaster.
Thank you so much, Jet. I really appreciate you being here. Good
Yeah.
job today, man.
Thank
Thank you all for watching. If you want to watch Jet's show, you'll be able to find that direct link in the description box below. Actually, we're also going to flex, I think, if we can do it. Let's flex the whole collaborator thing on this one, and we can share it down both if you choose
good.
to. That might be cool because that's a new feature on YouTube as well. Thank you for watching. Everybody has a podcast, Jet. Thank you for being here once again. We appreciate you guys. Get out there, go do it, even if it's not with one of us. We just want to see you out there having fun, enjoying yourself, and making a difference. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Later.